Welcome to Unit 2. I'm kidding. That's such a lame way to start. But what we're going to go over now is Unit 2. I've split up Unit 2 into 2 parts because it's a lot. And to give you such a large chunk of a unit, your, what, 3rd week? That's rude. So I split it up into little bites. And you can handle the very, 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 very mammoth-sized units later on down the line. But this is like, you're still warming up, still getting into it. That being said, this is Unit 2, and Unit 2 covers the ancient Mediterranean. But I've split it up between the ancient Near East, which is like Mesopotamia and Egypt, and the Unit 2 Part 2 is Greece, Rome, and I think, Greece, Etruria, and Rome. And so that'll be, later. But for now, this is Unit 2, Part 1, Ancient Near East. All of the images are written on the board. The different colors represent the different cultures that we're going over. Let's see. So much of the surviving artwork that we have from this unit has a lot to do with royal figures or divinities. And there's like a formation at this point of stylistic conventions that are consistent throughout the Near East. We have funerary objects. Thank you, Eric. It's so loud out there. And I'm not going to edit this out. This is going to be in there. So if you're curious later, and if this makes the cut, all that and this will be in there. Not that that is exciting, just letting you know this is all going to be unedited. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so there's funerary objects, large palaces, citadels, fortresses, and they're all important to all 3 cultures that we're going to go over in this one. So it's Mesopotamia, Persia, and Egypt. Now there was an active exchange of trade goods in this area, and along with that are like ideas about philosophies, religions, and artwork. So we're going to see a lot of that, and we're going to be able to look at some of the commonalities that they share. Now, we do have written records of this time period. Thank you, Babylonians. So the Babylonians were really cool. They really gave society a lot of stuff. These guys established so much. They invented the wheel, which was not used for transportation. It was used for pottery. Art is important, guys. They invented the sailboat. That was used for transportation, not ceramics. And because of the sailboat, they had to, make maps. So cartography is an innovation. Was it Babylonians? No, Sumerians. Was it Sumerians? No, sorry, Babylonians. Math, writing, tools for farming, like the plow. Eventually the chariot came by. They also started recording time. Nobody ever thought to really kind of keep track of just the days, I guess. We see bricks invented in this time period and culture, and then because of the region that the way it was, irrigation, and this would bring water from the natural sources to places that don't have it, or to areas that need it. So that's a lot, and you don't need to know all those. That's just something. It's just something to get the idea of the impact that these cultures have. All right. Oh, there's my coffee. I've been uncoffeed all morning. So, let's just start to get into it. So what you need to know is that ancient Near Eastern art takes place mostly in what we know as city-states. Are you guys familiar with the concept of city-states? They have their own sovereignty. Like if El Paso was a city-state, we would have a lot more control over what we do in the municipality that we inhabit. Kind of like how we're not on the same like electric grid as the rest of Texas, and so we're always usually safe whenever the rest of Texas has an electrical problem. So we're kind of encapsulated in that way. If that kind of helps make sense. There's city-states. And it's mostly in Mesopotamia. Egypt was an entire kingdom. But religion plays a dominant role in some of these as well. So let's get into it. Speaking of religion, this is, now these are the Sumerians. They ruled southeast Babylonia. And they're the ones who were the ones that were innovating a lot. They brought us the cuneiform, and they developed the first urban communities. So you would have so like Uruk, they would have a major patron deity, right? And these temples would be in the center of the city, so that it made a huge statement. Now, there aren't any mountains in this area. So what they would do is they would build these kind of trapezoidal structures, and those trapezoidal structures are called ziggurats. And this also, we also get to see the invention of the mud brick. Ziggurats. I will update the vocabulary. I didn't update the vocabulary. I updated the image list, but not the vocabulary. It's spelled up there. Ziggurat. You're a rat. Anyway, that's how I remember how to spell it. So we have these ziggurats, and then the temple is placed on top of the ziggurat. So it's on top of a platform. Now, it's impossible for you to just know this, but why do you think that they did that? Why place the temple on top of a huge platform? So let's think about this. The whole idea of deities, and we as civilization is developing, relies on the fact that these deities are non-terrestrial. Terrestrial. They're not on Earth. This is what I'm trying to say. More coffee. So usually, what do you do when you're like, oh my God, I can't find my keys? Where do you look? You don't look, down, right? Into the earth. You look up, like, oh, where is this stuff? So there's an idea and a belief that the gods are elevated above humankind. So, in order for it to be closer to the gods, they would build the temples on these kind of man-made platforms. And later on in other cultures, we'll see like the idea of deities like living in the mountains, like Mount Olympus. You guys are hopefully are familiar with that in Greek mythology. But yeah, so the central placement and the size would make these temples visible from most of the city. And the fact that we have this monumental architecture, this huge structure that reflects the importance of religion in this culture. Now, I said that each city has like a main god, right? Now, the White Temple is dedicated to the god of sky. He's the patron god of the city. The name of the god of the sky is Anu, A-N-U. How do we know that? How do we know that's a letter A and a U? And how do we know how it's pronounced? It's like was all cuneiform. I don't know. That's just like something to ponder. Now, what's interesting about this, and this is something that's kind of like a standard going forward, the alignment, because it's rectilinear, right? The footprint would be like either a square or a rectangle. The four corners of the temple are oriented to the four cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west. And a lot of this has a lot of it, I mean almost all of it, has something to do with the sun. So the sun rises in the east, sets in the west. So if your temple is facing the east, the first rays of sun, because they still think that they're at this point, the sun is like, how does this happen? So the first rays of the sun shine onto the what's called the cella, the main part of the temple. And it shines onto whatever cult statue of the god is in there, because they have a statue of the deity in the temple. So the statue gets the first rays of the sun. And so that's why we see that like universally, right, throughout many different cultures, the orientation according to the cardinal directions of the earth, but that's really a reflection of the fascination, almost obsession, and we saw this with Stonehenge, right, of the sun. The sun rules all. All right, so that was a lot of context. So let's look at the form. The form is like a monumental structure. It's a ziggurat, a trapezoidal, almost pyramid-like structure. Now, it's got the edges or the walls are sloped so that rainwater, and it's also it was fluted, so that rainwater would just kind of not collect on top, and it would just kind of flow and kind of like would just flow off the sides. There was also, because how do you get up there? You can't just like run up the sides of that. There's stairs. Now the stairs the they they're pretty they're not really intricate, but they changed the angles changed in order to kind of accommodate to get to the top. But suffice it to say, it's a trapezoid, has stairs to get to the top. It's time to take attendance. Yeah, I'm not cutting this either. Write the number in where you are. I need reminders. All right, yeah. Okay, so we also talked a little about, so it's a ziggurat with stairs and a temple on top. We talked about the function of that, right? The functionality of having the temple up top brings the worshipers closer to the gods. Now the temple was really small. It wasn't built to accommodate a congregation. As a result, only priests, royalty, and that's it. Like clergy and royalty, they were the only ones who were able to access the temple. So this is also the beginning of social stratification. That's a hierarchy of importance of individuals in a culture. It's like, these people are more important than these people. So that's where we start to see division. Functions. What else? Uruk. Agriculture was a big deal, and they had a ton of people. I think there was like 40,000 there, and so labor was also important. You had enough people to do a lot of these things. So you had Neolithic civilizations, but this would be the first true city. It's not just like a collection of individuals. There's a hierarchy here. So this is would be the first true city, is what scholars believe. All right. Any questions? The content would be a ziggurat and a temple. Very similar to the form, but the form is more... Well, I guess you can also talk about the mud bricks, right? That's also part of the content. Speaking of, the mud bricks were whitewashed. They were painted white. So you can imagine just being, hey, I'm in Mesopotamia, and you're like, hey, I'm in Uruk, and then this just vibrant, like with the sun, it must have just been super vibrant and bright. It's a really mystical experience if you can just kind of imagine it, the temple, and so that really helped boost the piety of the people of Uruk. If there's no questions, we're going to go on to statue of votive figures. This is also Sumerian. This is from a different area, a different place. But this was a very, we'll get into it. They're all pretty much very similar. These are made from gypsum, which is easier to carve stone. And then there's like black limestone and pearl embedded, like for the eyes. It was embedded in there. Also, look at the clothing, right? Yeah, the men, not only do they have like really like cool like Boston Red Sox hair, but they also have like a really, really huge beard. And they're wearing like a kilt-like clothing. And the women have like a, you know, like a little, like a one-shoulder dress. All right, so votive figures. Other than just being really kind of weird looking, they had like a very their function is also intertwined with some of the context. The function of these votive figures, since not everybody could be in the temple. These figures would be sent with the clergy to be placed in the temple to represent a family or a group of people living in a household. And that also feeds into their form. I started talking about their form, right? Well, I'll get into their form later. That's their main function. And the reason why they know, they figure this, they know, is that this stuff down here is writing. It's not like degeneration. The inscriptions on these things say it offers prayers. And so these representing a family, right? And their hands are clasped together in offering. So they're offering prayers. So it's a little stand-in for the family. Now they vary in size, but the style, there's the styles, the aesthetic is very similar. It's all pretty standardized. I also want to point out something pretty sophisticated. They have legs, right? So this is where we first see statues. These are not relief sculptures. These are statues. And so they stand on their own. They even have what is called voids, right? There's no like support stone here. They're just legs. So it's like that's a hole, a void in a sculpture. Oh, another thing I wanted to point out about their feet, and we're going to see more of this in a more pronounced way. The left foot is more forward than the right. That's an indication of movement, that these could have some sort of, I don't know, living essence. It's just an expression of movement. It's an interest in a very naturalistic portrayal of the human form. So these are getting pretty accurate, right? Now, a lot of these were found buried in groups underneath the temple floor when, like, explorers found them, archaeologists. Any questions about this one? It's very straightforward. Talked about the form, the function, the content. I got into the clothing and the hairstyles and the beard. I make mention of the beard because I talk about beards throughout the rest of this unit. So, any questions? All right, we're going to move on. What time are we out of here? 55. We've got time. This brings us to the standard of or. You are, or. And this is our last Sumerian piece. So this has got a lot of stuff going on. This is wood, shells, lapis lazuli. You Minecrafters know what that is. And red limestone. I want you to look at the dimensions. 8 inches by a foot and 7 inches. It's not very big, right? It's like smaller than the size of a piece of paper. So here's what we see. A very early narrative. A narrative tells a story, or it recounts an event. It tells a story. Now these are divided, so it's two-sided, right? There wasn't two. We're just showing you front and the back simultaneously. Each side has a different narrative. There's a war side and a peace side. So let's look at the war side first. Does anyone remember what the horizontal bands are called? Registers is correct. If I had a candy, I'd give you a candy. Well, I have candies. I'm not going to give you candy. But you get a thumbs up. I'll get you something. I'll get you like a sticker. I've got stickers. I just don't have them right now. We need to talk about this. The war side is broken up or divided in 3 horizontal registers, right? And this is also the first example of something called a continuous narrative. And I'll get into more of that later. This is when you see the same person in the same work of art, but they're repeated. So what do we have here? Let's just observe this. What do these look like? Chariots, one of the inventions, right? Now this shows multiple, this is like the multiple legs or multiple horses. Right, so we have chariots. Chariots aren't usually for leisure. And then you have, what do these guys look like? But, yeah, soldiers. Let me zoom in on the soldiers. They have weapons of some sort. And so that guy's really happy to be here. He's having a good time. So we have a long line of soldiers, and they're marching people who look kind of like, nervous. These are prisoners of war. I also glossed over the fact that there's the same looking people down here, right? These guys are getting trampled. So this bottom register actually shows some violence. And the top register is, well, you have guys not really just standing around doing nothing, so they might be high-ranking officials. Now, we're introducing a new concept. This new concept is called hierarchical scale. You guys know what a hierarchy is, right? Right? Some stuff is more important than others. Well, hierarchical scale is when you have a person that's depicted larger than another person. The person that's larger is more important, right? It commands more attention. So let's do some guesswork. We have all these people here, right? They're relatively the same height, more or less. Not that guy. But this guy in the center is taller than these guys. He even breaks through the top border a little bit. Who do you think that is? That would be the king. So these guys are surrounding him because they're protecting him. This guy is like up here. So if we're thinking about hierarchical scale, you have like you have the guards. Who do you think this tiny creature is? It's probably like some squire or slave, right? He doesn't look like the rest of them. You know, they got the same clothes, so he's on their side. But he's not as important as the bodyguards or any of the soldiers. The war side. Any questions about the war side? I also want to point out I know I didn't pause long for questions, but I usually look for hands. If you have a question, just ask. There's also, it's very decorative. You have geometric patterns within the registers, just kind of like dressing it up. And it reads, so like the whole sequence of events reads from bottom to top, right? So this is like, hey, we're triumphant. Now, the peace side, it looks a lot more sedate, right? The war side is there's like a lot of people here. There's a lot of action down here. It's really chaotic. You know, there's literal violence down here, and it's really active. The peace side, there's even people just sitting in chairs. So it's really just kind of relaxed, almost peaceful. We still have hierarchical scale, right? Where's the king? You guys see him? Yeah, he's in the upper left-hand corner. Again, too tall for the border. And I used to joke that, look, hey, so then you have his bodyguards here, and I used to joke that this looks like a hole, and he's guarding like the back door, but no, that's just like a fragment of another, soldier. But what's happening is there's peace and prosperity. They have plenty of dry goods and animals, and they're just walking, right? Sheep or a goat or an ibex. And on the upper register, this is like the banquet scene. So you can kind of guess that they're enjoying a peaceful life, or quite possibly bringing tribute to the king. But up top is a banquet scene. They're sitting down, drinking whatever, that orange drink from McDonald's. They don't have that anymore. There was a special orange drink at McDonald's, and you just got some. Now it's orange high C. Do they have orange high C at McDonald's? Who cares, right? I don't think they do. They have Powerade. That's not the same thing. Anyway, so they're up here kind of sitting and drinking, and you even have musicians playing musical instruments. This guy is super happy to be here. Look at that. He's like, this is such a cool party. And then so we go all the way, and absolutely nothing violent or threatening on this side. So two very distinct sides. We have the king appearing on both sides. So that makes it a continuous narrative. Now, what is the function other than, telling us a story? Well, yeah, how would you know? They have scholars believe that this might, because of its size and because it's the materials involved, that they think that it's a sound box for some sort of musical instrument. Other theories, it's called the standard of Ur, and so a battle standard is something you carry, like those big banners that you carry, that soldiers carry, like, this is our country. That just doesn't, I don't like that theory. That theory sounds stupid. So what it really does is it illustrates the dual nature of the Sumerian ruler. You have the victorious general, the father and protector of his people, and then you have the provider of peace. Any questions about the standard of Ur? All right. That is all for today.